Welcome to Full Throttle Talk, the podcast where horsepower meets conversation. From supercars to classic legends, high revving tech to motorsport mayhem, we cover it all. Straight from the driver's seat, whether you're a gearhead or racer or just love the thrill of the open road, you're in the right place. Buckle up, hit the gas, and let's go full throttle into today's episode. Welcome back. It's Tim Harris, and this is your favorite weekly automotive complete nerd fest podcast. This is Full Throttle Talk, and joining me this week, as every week, we have Dave Van Epps, we have Paul Kramer, and we have Casey Parkin. So guys, let them know what the coolest thing that happened in your automotive lives since our last podcast.
I guess I'll go first because it happened last night and my brain cells can still remember it. But went and saw F1 movie, which, you know, it's already come out, but this was kind of a unique special thing. And Tim might know the area, but in Newport Beach, there's Lido Island. There's an old vintage theater that's been saved by a car guy. And this was a benefit for 1199 Foundation, which is for CHP officers, fallen officers, as well as the Checkered Flag 200, which is sort of a premier club for the Peterson. And it was a charity type event. And what was wild is I went with my friend as his plus one because his wife wanted no part of that, even though Brad Pitt was in it. And it was, I would say, the wealthiest room in Southern California I've ever been in. I mean, so sitting behind me to the left, and I talked to him for a bit, was Chip Foose and his wife. Next to him was Barry McGuire, a gentleman, David Kim, big collector, Ferrari collector. Tim, you've seen in pictures on Instagram. You know, obviously it was hosted by Bruce Meyer, and there was the mayor of Newport Beach. It was insane as I'm looking around and seeing. In fact, uh, I took this because I was probably the only person taking video, but this was just I don't know if it comes out. Shoot, it was. Yeah, you can see free concessions, just packed with. I was the poorest person in the room for sure, but I did bid. They had a silent auction. One was for Oscar Piastra's F1 suit that he wore in the Monaco podium, which the guy who was my host he bid on and won for $20,000 to charity. There was another auction for one of the people allowed their private jet to take you to the CHP training center, and you get to watch that and have a whole day. And the other one that was funny was and that went for 25 grand. And then they had another one for, you got a private tour of the Peterson with the chairman of the board, a private tour of Jay Leno's garage with Jay Leno, and a private tour of Bruce Meyer's garage, and they sold that for 25 grand and sold four of them. They were supposed to do one. And then there was David Pyle, who's a friend of mine, client here in Costa Mesa, Orange County, and he matched every dollar, he went to the bathroom. Wow. And he came back and he suddenly knew he had to write a check for 150 grand.
Jeez.
But it raised a lot of money, and it was wild because it's not, I mean, I don't like being in movie theaters with a bunch of people, and I got to not. And I can't remember the last time I sat shoulder to shoulder with someone, but these were all like nerdy ass car guys, and it was kind of fun. It's been a while since I've seen a movie with a group of people. So
yeah, well, cool. And the parking lot probably was pretty badass too, I would think.
You know, surprisingly, it was after work. There was a lot of Bentegos.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Let's move on. Let's forget I asked that question. Dave, you are in an airport, and so that we can in case you get disconnected, what's the coolest thing that happened in your automotive life since our last podcast?
Coming to you live from Charlotte Douglas International Airport. There we are with the planes behind me. I'm on my way to Buffalo. It was a great week. Last night in particular, I had a blast, and this will hopefully generate some debate here. I got in a 997 GT3, 997.1 GT3 with a buddy of mine who was trying to kind of figure out and dial in what's going on with the suspension. And we ripped up some streets and roads around the South Carolina area. And it's really the first time I've driven a GT3, 997.1 GT3, kind of, we'll call it an anger. And I got to tell you, I was a little disappointed. And I mean, great car. but candidly, I like my 991.1S just as well. And I felt like from an appearance perspective, the inside of the car just feels dated to me on the GT3, the 997. Paul, you got a 996 GT3, right?
Right. So wait, you said yours was a 996 GT3. Is that what it
No,
was?
I was in a 997.1 GT3, and I had personally that I used to own a 991.1 3.8 liter S, manual transmission car. Great car, and I candidly liked my driving experience in that better than the GT3, and I was ripping it up pretty good. So
let's hold off on debating this. So just for the record, listeners and viewers, Dave Van Epps is saying, in his opinion, the 997 GT3 is a complete piece of crap. We're going to debate that in a second. All right, Casey Parkin, Casey Parkin, you're next. What's the coolest thing that happened in your automotive life since he's rolling his eyes?
I don't know if I can talk now. I'm absolutely taken aback. Oh,
that's the whole
goodness.
point, Casey. That's the whole point. Right?
Boy,
taking it back.
So I'm gonna hate 993s and David's gonna hate 997 GT3s. So perfect. What do you hate,
You're up,
Casey?
Casey.
Well, let's talk. Let's be positive. How about that, gentlemen? A couple interesting things. I had a client, the car behind me in the picture, pick up an AMG Hammer about 4 or 5 months ago. I've spent a bunch of time in the car previous to this point. It was super dialed in. It came from an insane collection. Just a really great car, really great prior custodian of the car. I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I've done a bunch of research in what makes an AMG Hammer an AMG Hammer. And apparently the car behind me started as a Mercedes 300 CE. They put a 6-liter in it. They widen the body, and that's pretty much how you get to what's called a Hammer. And then this one is, somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it is the only manual transmission 2-door AMG Hammer produced. I think there were 2 of them produced. One was a 4-door and one was a 2-door. So I spent a bit of time in this car again yesterday to make it fresh in my mind. I've been spending a lot of time in 80s and 90s cars recently, and had a really good run in it. The transmission is awesome. It feels a lot like a G50. It's very similar with the throw to the left and up for reverse. Feels great. Awesome engine sounds, really great dished wheels of the era. So I spent a bit of time in that. And then the other end of the spectrum is a client that I care for his cars, picked up another new Ford GT, new meaning 2017, 18 through, I think this one was a 22. I care for 3 Ford GTs, actually 3 of the new Ford GTs and one of the older ones. This one had just above delivery miles on it, so it didn't really get to run on this one, but I have driven them before. There's one that I care for with almost 1,000 miles on it. Really interesting car. It looks like from our docket, we will be talking a little bit about Ford GTs later, so I'll dig more into it then, but really great polar ends of the spectrum for vehicle enjoyment.
Yeah, we will be talking about Ford GTs a little bit later. And yes, and we're going to be doing a very, I think, an interesting this or that in a second here. So my past week, my automotive enjoyment has been limited to Bring a Trailer and YouTube videos, because actually Julie and I are working on a new book. So I haven't had much time to do anything else other than those things, and I've enjoyed them immensely. But I will certainly I'll improve my automotive experiences prior to the next podcast. All right. So Dave, why do you hate GT3s from the 997 generation? I mean, you crap on them all the time, almost as bad as Paul, almost as bad as Paul does with 993s, but I'm going to have your back. Okay, so listen,
Okay.
I had a 997, a 2010 997 GT3 RS, and I'm going to say something that's not as horrible and mean and absolutely, full of vitriol like what you said, but I didn't like that car. Personally, I thought it was, and this was when we lived in Texas, which generally speaking, we lived in slightly rural Texas. The roads weren't that great, but I thought it was I just thought it was, frankly, not that great of a car. And I found the newer, slightly, newer Porsches much more enjoyable, to your point. And I'll also go as far as to say, I can't believe those cars are now selling in the 300s. That makes no sense to me. So there you go. So Dave, why do you hate the G997 GT3 so much?
Well, of course, hate is such a strong word. I certainly do not hate, but I would say that if you had to compare that car to my 991.1 naturally aspirated S, 3.8 liter, 400 horsepower, I felt the clutch on the GT3 much heavier, of course, expected. But as a car that I'm ripping around and I'm not driving it on the track. So that's the other, qualifier is that it just the 991.1 is a more refined car. The other thing is I feel like these cars are falling in that time period of being slightly dated. They haven't gotten to the hip point of being dated. They're still in that, it looks a little old to me. So that whole center console on that 997, 996 era, I mean, the 997 is slightly better than the 996, of course, but it just feels a little dated, a little, just doesn't give me the good vibe about getting in that car. And I like the drive. I like that I can get a little squeak on the rear end if I kicked it out a little bit. But by and large, I just felt like my 991.1S was a more sorted car that I felt more comfortable and confident in driving. So that's my real reason. Plus,
And
this one was white,
No.
and white bores me.
And people say, you don't, looks are subjective, but I agree with what you were kind of talking around, that the 997 it is smaller physically than the next generation cars, but the next generation cars, the overall design looks much more resolved. So Paul, why do you agree with everything we just said?
Well, some of it I do agree. I like the 996 GT3 so much better than the 997, and they're fundamentally, on paper, they're kind of the same car, which is bizarre. So this yellow one behind me, when I got my 996 GT3, we were selling that at the same time, and my neighbor and I took both of them up to the mountains, and we would drive 5 miles and switch, 5 miles and switch in what I would say the perfect setting to drive those cars. And, think about it, they're both 3.6s, basically the same motor, same transmission, roughly the same weight. The thing that stood out is the 996 chassis is so stiff, and the Aero on the 997 is so much better that the net result was your butt dyno said that the 996 was faster. And the only way you knew it wasn't faster was when you were chasing down the 997. And when we would switch, it was effortless to go fast, and in my opinion, a little less drama. And I think because the Aero is so good and the grip is so good, they don't feel like they have enough power, and then they feel kind of unexciting unless you're going like on second gear, really tight turns where you're just tossing the car. So
I agree.
So in the end, we kept on scratching our heads, like, why is this not as interesting to drive? And going back to the comment about the interior, and yeah, it's better than the 996, but I think because you're going so slow or feel so slow, you're bored and you're busy looking around the interior going, this is shit. So the 996, you're sitting there going, holy shit, I'm going to lose control. And you don't see any of the interior. You're just trying not to go off the edge of the mountain. So that's my 2 cents.
Casey, what do you think? Are these guys full of, you know what?
So, I mean, there's a couple of things that we can talk about. And my beginnings with Porsche started in the fall of 2006, which was 997 GT3 time. So I remember getting in 997 GT3s. David, unfortunately, most of them were white. The communication color for the car was white. And just like Paul, the communication color for the posters for the 996 GT3 were yellow. You never saw yellow ones, so I can't imagine what one of those costs now. But all the white ones, a really interesting thing is the bumpers were a different shade of white than the rest of the car. So that's a really easy way that you can tell that the 997s were original paint. Was the bumpers were a lot creamier white than the Carrara white that was on the rest of the car. So for me, a lot of it goes back to the history and heritage of the car itself. I love 996 GT3s. I love 997 GT3s. How tall are you, Dave?
5'11".
Okay. So what the argument I was going to make was just squashed, but 991 came out in basically, I think it was around Daytona time, 2011. Correct. Somebody will correct me if I'm wrong. It might have been 2012, somewhere in
It
there,
was
but they came out
half of
as,
2012, second half of
yeah,
2012. Yep.
yeah. So when the car came out, it was a big change. Wheelbase increased by 4 inches, front track increased by about an inch and a half. So you got a tremendous amount more stability, both in those regards. The transmissions in 996 and 997 GT3s are pretty much the same transmissions, other than the fact that they use cables versus rods that 964s and 993s have. So it's a significantly older technology. And of course, the GT3 cars use Metzger engines. So big differences in terms of they put the parts in cars that they know that they could run in basically in international motorsport for 24 hours and knew that they could succeed in, which of course they didn't start exploring more until the 2014,
Well,
2015 GT3s and then RSs after that. So the
Casey,
stability, yeah.
yeah, so you said something was two things that were interesting. I didn't know this either, and I apologize for not knowing this. The wheelbase on the 997 is actually how long,
Yeah.
much
It's
longer?
100 millimeters.
So it's longer than the 996 by how much?
I'm pretty sure 996, 997 are the same wheelbase.
Yeah.
Okay, same wheelbase. That's what I
Yeah.
thought. All right. So, but the biggest difference that I'm surprised no one's mentioned yet is that didn't the 996 GT3 have no traction control, only had ABS?
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, wouldn't that be the whole thing right there?
You know, as much as that is, but people forget traction control is something at the very end of when you messed up. Like, so it's not always prevailing. It's just but I think in the mind, you're sitting there going, I have no traction control. If I push this too far, I'm done. So I think what makes the car to me exciting is always that fear of death. That helps. But the real difference with the 996 that Casey can do is this, and I'm surprised more people don't talk about it, is this seam welded cup chassis. I mean, I think Andy Pruninger came in, that was the first car he did. The 996.1 was done. That was his first car, and he's a track guy, he's a car guy, and he decides to take a cup chassis essentially, put carpet, air conditioning maybe, and sell it. And the customers out there, they had go back to 2003 and 2004. GT3 was not a product. No one knew what the hell it was. You say GT3 now, everyone knows what you're talking about to some degree. So people were buying these cars and they were taking them back to the dealer. They were complaining that they didn't handle well. They were twitchy. They were doing all these horrible things. And and Casey can attest this. Like literally, that car is so freaking sensitive to tire pressure, tire size, compound, alignment, ride height. It reminds me of my old BMW race car. It does the same. It's race car. And the 997 is a Carrera S with a cool engine, some Aero, and
So you just, again, I'm learning something. That's the reason I like doing this podcast is I get a little bit smarter in the most useless ways ever, which is car trivia. But you said the 996s, all the 996 GT3s, and obviously including the RSs were seam welded. Is that what you said? I didn't know that.
They're such stiff chassis, which cracks me up when people put roll bars in them who aren't going on the track. Like that's the last thing that car needs. The last thing that car needs is stiffer springs. In fact,
well, that's a really special car altogether. And what, Paul, you've got an unbelievably gorgeous silver one that's behind you that I know you just put for sale the other day. And so talk about that car and let's talk about that compared to say a comparable, 997 GT3 price wise.
Yeah, so this one is 22,000 miles, original paint, not modified, very pristine. It's polar silver, which they made 11. Almost all 996s by that generation were Arctic, and then they were already getting ready to go into GT silver. So polar silver, 993 color, fading away, in my opinion, looks outstanding. And they did painted back sports seats on them in polar silver that look awesome. It's just it's the right ride height. It's not slammed. It's just not all the crazy stuff. And this one we just listed, and actually right before I got on the podcast, looks like we're getting a deposit on it for 134 with 22,000 miles. If this was not yellow, but unique 997.1 GT3 in like a little different shade of silver or gray with 22,000 miles, I think it would be in the $20,000 to $30,000 more, maybe 40, depending on how unusual, like if it was a slate gray or something. If it was a 997.2 GT3, I think you would be at 200 and maybe slightly above.
Yeah,
Right,
I'd say it
Casey?
doesn't make sense.
To me, it doesn't make sense. I look back at the 96 GT3s and I go, they made like 900 of these cars. No
Yeah.
one bought them. And because no one cared about them, they were tracked, they were beat on, they were just screwed up. And I think there's so few of these actually left.
And another thing to know about GT3s is a lot of it really has to do with prior ownership, because people really did beat the snot out of these and they didn't take care of them, especially when they got cheap. I remember being able to get, 15,000, 20,000 mile 996 GT3s in the 60s, maybe 65, 70 grand.
Yep.
And that really made it a different animal. And when you have, and Paul and I have talked about this before, is that the real benefit of Porsche ownership is buying prior owners, making sure that the car was cared for correctly makes a huge difference. Because I've driven 997 second gen GT3 RSs that didn't drive well. And the one that I take care of routinely is a one owner car from new. And that car is so dialed and so right that often you can't go back and almost fix what prior owners did because it's so hard to find what the issue is.
Yep, incredible. So listen, I do have something I wanted to ask you guys about, and it's okay if you don't want to talk about it. Maybe you're just not interested. But it's almost become a bit of an obsession with me trying to understand. Paul, I can already tell by his facial expression, is not interested in this topic. I could tell just by looking at you, Paul.
No, I was trying to show pictures of my 996 GT3 with the rock chips and mud because I drive it in gravel. I am the owner that Casey is talking about.
Exactly. Well, so I am really mesmerized, and not in the sense that I necessarily want to get one, but by the C8 ZR1 and the ZR1X. And I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to this, but I cannot wrap my little automotive brain around the fact that it's very likely that the ZR1 is going to be the fastest car around the Nürburgring. And you were just on the Nürburgring, Paul, so you know what a big deal that is. 150 curves, the whole thing. The fastest car on that track prior, or it might still be true, we don't know yet, has been the AMG One. And those cars are now selling for over $5 million. So a little car made in Bowling Green, Kentucky is now besting the best cars in the world on their home turf. I cannot wrap my mind around what that does to the automotive hierarchy if you remove the perception of brand. So for example, if you look at it as purely a driving instrument, car to car, Corvette's always been easily picked upon for various reasons, quality. You could say, for example, it's only good in a straight line, the whole thing. But this generation of cars now, I have to say, in my opinion, has met or exceeded the competition and is beating their asses on their home turf. So the belief is the new ZR1 is lapping the green hell in 6 minutes, 28 seconds, which will be faster than the fastest car costing. I can't even do that math in my head. So is this even on your guys' radars? Because everyone else in the automotive world seems to be totally nerded up about this. Paul, you first, since you could just say pass if you want to pass.
I want to pass because I want to get a picture for you first. So go to someone else because this is my only answer to your question. But go
to Dave, if you don't mind going next, because again, I know
no, not at all. I've watched. I think the car is actually it's a good looking car as well, and the idea that this car is also ripping it in terms of performance, I think yay for America. Honestly, it's a cool car, and I think it's going to continue to hold value and probably increase in value because it's going to be such limited production. So I would have no issues owning one of these things.
Paul, I'm sorry, we seem to be losing connection with you.
Oh, can you see me now? Yeah, go ahead, get your Z8. There you go. There's Tim at the Walmart in his jorts with the New Balance and all his buddies, just chatting about their lap times that they're never actually going to do because they're going to be busy detailing the car, checking the weather to make sure it can make it the 100 yards to the next Cars and Coffee, and getting their placard done and their red, white, and blue fold-out chair. So, yeah.
So you think that guy, Paul, is going to be a ZR1X client? You think that guy is going to be the client?
They're still arguing about the C4 versus the C5. They think the world ends at C5 basically. So
It
No,
looks like a
just
Bob Barker lookalike contest.
it does. But I
No,
mean, in all seriousness, Tim, we've heard it before. Corvettes democratize power and speed and performance, and there's no arguing, their competence. My always issue, besides the fact that my wife was here, she hates Corvettes so much. When you get those personalized frames, we were at the fair one time and she wanted to get a personalized frame that said, "I hate all Corvettes." I mean, she has an undescribable disdain for the car, and I don't know why. Maybe it's just the stereotype of who the driver is. I would say my biggest issue with Corvettes is they're like, you remember that like Wrigley's gum or fruit stripe gum? It's this burst of flavor. It tastes really good for like 10 seconds and then it's just sitting in your mouth. And Corvette designs like that. It looks really cool. They've taken all these cool elements and in 2 years, they just look like garbage. So,
Okay, so now we know Dave hates 997 GT3s, and Paul is without a doubt a future Corvette owner. Because really, all you're doing now by bagging on Corvette is you're just letting the world know that you have low testosterone. That is really what my big takeaway is. And that's really the bottom line. Because if you, exactly, no, that's actually when you go bald, that's actually a sign of high testosterone.
okay.
But yeah, the very fact that you don't recognize how happy and relaxed and cool looking those elderly gentlemen are, and in their Walmart shorts and shoes, that's a you thing. There's
It is. You got me.
well, but seriously though, setting all that aside, setting all the preconceived notions, because let's just be honest, you could have easily said the same interesting statements about Ferraris back in the 70s and the 80s, maybe even now, right? You could have said similar things about Porsche owners. Porsche owners certainly have a certain type about them,
Oh yeah.
all four of us, you guys more than me, but you guys get the point though. I mean, so all these things have and I just honestly, I like what Dave said, truthfully. And next year is going to be the 250th anniversary, if you want to call it that, of America. We're going to have a whole bunch of other things happening. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if, frankly, that ZR1 is the fastest car in the world. Dude, the car goes 235. And I guarantee you every one of those grandpas are rocking that on their way to get their, visit their girlfriends at the old folks home. Casey, what do you think about this? Is this a worthwhile topic?
I I don't drive fast. I mean, that's the problem with me. I'm a slow car fast guy. One of the most interesting things that I think has come out recently is the smoking tire guys, Matt and Zach, somehow got one of those Alpine A110s that has 200 and some odd horsepower and weighs 2,400 pounds. That to me is so much more interesting than a car that laps the Nürburgring. That being said, I do know that a lot of my clients and friends that are race car drivers with like Rolexes from winning, they like the newest technology. They like things that turn incredible lap times. As a car guy, that's just not me. And as I said before, I'm super appreciative that they are pushing the envelope to make every other car better, same as Tesla did for making electric cars better from other manufacturers. But I'm just not I'm not the kind of guy that really cares about 0 to 60 times. I'm more about driving engagement. I look after a hot rod 914-6 with blown out fenders on it with probably 200 wheel horsepower. To me, that's so much more interesting than a car that goes sub 7 minute Nürburgring lap times.
I'm probably along the lines of what Dave, because also, what do we have happening next year? Cadillac's going to be in Formula One. It's run by the Andrettis. I love reading how they're scaling up so fast around, I think it's in Speedway, Indiana, or around the, Indianapolis. I just love the fact that America is really kind of stepping up automotively. And it does, truthfully, and I can't quite put my finger on it, annoy me immensely when I hear anybody bagging on our country. It just drives me fucking mad. And now that we have the ZR1 coming out, I think it's going to put a period at the end of the statement that we can't produce something that's world beating. That's all I have to say about that. All right, let's move on to this or that. Okay. And I'll go last because I kind of broke the rules. Hopefully you guys have this or that prepared. And this is their section in our podcast where we we usually keep it less than $30,000, but I broke the rules. So we're going to do a this or that where everyone gets to, Paul, for example, will say, would you rather have this car or would you rather have this car? And generally speaking, all the cars that we're proposing for you to consider, which you would choose, are on Bring a Trailer. So Casey, why don't you go first if you're ready? Are you ready, sir?
I am. Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about how much we love, Paul and I talked about how much we love Volkswagens. And Tim, I know you love Volkswagens too. So something that I found recently that came across Bring a Trailer was some sort of odd four-door GTI that was converted to some sort of race car series in Japan. And did not sell. It's got a full, I mean, if you look at the pictures of it, not that I can share that on my computer, but if you go and Bring a Trailer and look up GTI four-door 5-speed COX space RT, basically this car looks like every VW Vortex Fantasy that was sometime around 1997 or 1998. Basically has a 16-valve 2-liter motor. It looks like they did a whole bunch of chassis reinforcement with a full roll cage. And the fact that it's a four-door to me makes it really cool. This car did not sell for 15 grand in Canada, or actually it was in Canada, but it was in US dollars on Bring a Trailer. And then the other car, I was looking for interesting Volkswagen factory race cars. And Volkswagen had I looked for one of those Beetle RSI VR6 things, which are really awesome. But the other car that I came up with was a Lupo GTI Cup car. It basically has a 1600 cc motor. This car is in Japan, and it's 11,500 United States dollars plus whatever it needs to get it here. And to me, as I mentioned earlier, I would much rather run something out to the top of a gear and be going 65, 70 miles an hour and feeling like the car is going to explode like my first car, which was a Triumph Spitfire. I would much rather feel that than something like a 996 GT2, which is, I think, the scariest of the 996s, because that car definitely doesn't have traction control. So that's my this or that, kind of a one-off Mark III race car from Japan, or a Lupo GTI Cup car, which was a factory car from Volkswagen.
So Paul, which would you choose?
I'm a GTI guy. That Lupo, I mean, someone my size getting out of it, it is tiny. All you look at is clown car, big guy, little car. I mean, the GTI looks like a limousine compared to that Lupo thing. But yeah, what is it? So that's a Mark III GTI?
Yeah, early Mark III.
Early Mark IIIs, I think they don't get the love. I mean, everyone loves early ones and Mark IVs, but Mark III was kind of, the car after college I might get. But this is rad. And I agree, four-door race cars with roll cages, kind of rad.
I'm going to put it out there. If anyone's got a really nice Mark II, that was the car I wanted in high school, 16 valve. Definitely message me directly because I'd love to get one of those and add it to
Montana green. That's the one you got to get.
Oh
Awesome
man,
car.
you remember the Recaro seats with the cool inlaid fabric? Oh my gosh, those cars.
Recaro trophies. Yeah, I had three Mark IIIs, by the way. Two VR6s and a 2-liter.
Those cars were like 18, 23 grand when they were new. It's like, oh my gosh, those are just spectacular. Sorry, I digress. David, what about you? This or that?
I'm taking the GTI. Obviously, the odd track car deal for me. If I'm buying a car, I want to be able to drive it. I want to be able to drive it on the road. I want to enjoy it. Great car. Definitely lusted after those cars during my high school and college days as well. So I'm definitely the GTI.
I think it's a full house then. So Casey, out of curiosity, what would you choose of those two?
I love factory race cars because they are something different. I don't believe that there's a lot of things, especially looking at PCA club racing, where people turn something into a race car. I really like stuff that comes from the factory, but I'm a Mark III guy. This thing's got the Opt 4 headlight conversion to it, and it looks the business. And it's absolutely awesome. So I would definitely go for the Golf GTI 4-door. And it reminds me of those what was it? Those TWR four-door Volvo race cars that ran in British touring car DTM back in the day. What an awesome thing.
You know, Casey, you did bring up something cool. Those Volkswagen RSI, those badass Beetles, are those old enough to import now?
I mean, those were right around 2020. I mean, but they're race cars, so I mean, who knows what the laws anymore? But
Yeah.
I think those Beetle RSI cars are awesome. I couldn't find one for sale, and I'm sure it would have been a lot more expensive than $15,000.
Yeah.
So that's why it didn't go in there. But yeah, super cool.
It is super hard to find a this or that. And I spent a lot of time prior to the podcast because everything looks really expensive, even junk. So David, you are next. What is your this or that?
Okay, this is gonna divulge some secret horribleness about some embarrassing cars that I really used to like. So we're talking 1986 Pontiac Fiero GT in red versus this car had an original 35,000 miles on it, obviously manual transmission car, versus 1987 Nissan 300 ZX with about 150,000 miles on it. Both cars, priced around the same. These are your bargain cars. But back in the mid 80s when that Fiero came out, I thought that was the sexiest car alive when it came out in 1986 or 7 when that GT.
Okay, I
just thought it was great.
I have to ask respectfully with love. You were definitely into hair bands in the 80s, weren't you?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
I have no hair now, but I mean, but back then, but that car I just thought, it was a piece of crap car, clearly, guys. I mean, understand, but at the same time, from a U.S. domestic manufacturer to have a car that looked like that, I thought it was a pretty sweet little ride, and I've always lusted after that car. And when you see a really pristine one, one with super low miles, it just kind of, wow, it draws my attention. So let's put it out there. The other car has 150,000 miles. It's a Nissan. It's a ZX.
Let's go, Paul. You're first. What would you choose?
Not the Fiero. I agree with Dave. When that came out, it was very pretty design, and it is a victim of beauty is only skin deep. It is wretched. I finally took one on to sell maybe 10 years ago just because I wanted to experience it. And when the bar is low, like I know, this car is already, this was like 2010. I knew the car was crappy. It's been out long enough. And so the bar was low, and it was easily lower expectation than I thought. It was it was like a 10,000 mile pristine car. I think it was black, so pretty. And the manual, it might as well have been an automatic, the slushiest of manuals. And so it was crap. Whereas the 300ZX, I remember when that car came out, that was such a pretty car. I would say the downside was it was just heavy. But design-wise, I wish Nissan would go back to something like that. They're not even barely a company anyway. But and the interiors were, you could tell they were making a GT car. And the downside was it was heavy, but they were beautiful. And imagine the reason why all Fieros are low miles, because they can't survive past like 15, 20,000 miles. They just disintegrate. So.
Well, to Casey's point, we either are being very negative today or very honest today about things we do and don't like.
A little bit of both.
He was mentioning that we were being negative, but you're going with the Nissan. That's what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Casey, your turn.
A guy I really trust in the automotive sphere is a guy named Ray Schaefer that worked for Brumos for a long time. Then he worked at Porsche Classic for a long time, and now he works at Broad Aero. I don't know if Ray has it anymore, but he had for a long time a Fiero GT. And I have zero experience with either of these cars other than the fact that aesthetically, I did like the Fiero GT. I loved the 90s, mid 90s 300 ZX. I thought that was always a beautiful car. But I guess just to be a contrarian and trying, because according to Tim, I was very down on our country earlier because I was not a big supporter of the Corvettes. And for what it's worth, I went to an ALMS race in 2007 and saw the Corvettes running GT2 with the Panos cars, and there was nothing cooler than hearing those cars running down the front straight of Laguna Seca. I digress. I'm going to go with the Fiero only because I would never drive probably either of those cars, but I think the Fiero is a beautiful car to look at. And Ray Schaefer, you may or may not be listening, but I got to trust your judgment on this one.
I would go with the
Casey. Good job.
I would go with the Nissan because when I started dating Julie in high school, her parents both had leased 300 ZXs, which was hilarious. Those are their family cars. And so there's a little nostalgia, right or wrong associated with those little silly cars. But there you go. Let's move on. All right. Who wants to go up next with this or that?
I'll go.
Okay. Go for it.
So Tim, you said you had a hard time figuring out what you want, this or that. For me, it's always easy. I always do cars that I actually want. Like I don't know what it is, but I obsess about daily drivers, which is ironic because I have a 2.5 mile commute. Most of the time I'm driving clients' cars, so I rarely have time to drive a quote unquote daily driver. But I do I have my daily driver is a 2003 Jaguar STR, which talk about every time you turn the key on, it's just this fun game of will I make it? And so I sometimes dream, and we finally bought my wife a brand new Volvo XC60, just because she was tired of playing that game when we actually had to be somewhere. So I keep thinking, what would I get? And this was stuff I kind of like. And going back to Casey, if we could do something that's under 30,000, it's realistic. The first one is it's in the picture of my background, 2014 Cayenne diesel, was on Bring a Trailer. I don't know, not long ago, 65,000 miles, and it sold for 23,500. The second choice, which I kind of like this one is a 2010 Porsche Panamera Turbo. They're doing anything that's four-door and not an SUV depreciates just like a depth charge. And this one's 80,000 miles. It's in a really cool color, cognac metallic paint with cognac natural leather, RS Spider wheels, 80,000 miles. It sold for 21 grand. I mean, I think the Panamera was $150,000 car new. This one, I can't remember what it was. And it was cheap. And I think both of these cars, yes, I might be playing the game of will I get there, but they're kind of, I think, rad daily drivers. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, let me ask some questions. So on the original Cayennes, if I understand the history of those things, they were so over-engineered because Porsche was worried that they wouldn't sell, that they basically built those cars to be easily million-mile cars. Have you guys read about that? Casey, you would know more than probably.
Yeah, they were the original ones starting in 2003. And then my favorite ones were when they were updated in 2008 when they went to the DFI motors with 8-speed transmissions. They were super robust. They had real transfer cases in the middle of them. I mean, it was a real deal. You could off-road that thing. And Porsche did. Porsche won the Trans-Siberian Rally, I think, twice. And those were basically showroom stock cars. And then they built one of my favorite. Go ahead, Paul.
Oh, you're talking about I think Tim was talking about the Panamera, right?
No, the Cayenne.
Oh, the Cayenne. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they came out with the Trans-Siberia, and that was an awesome car that, Velton sponsored in the really awesome black and orange livery. Like, oh, don't talk about, Dave, you paying attention? 07 GT3 RSs. Anyway, we sold, I remember selling one of those back in the day. It was a gray one with, I think, silver graphics, but really awesome cars. So yes, the original ones were significantly more robust, but the second generation cars starting in 11 that Paul is referring to, that and later, drove way better. And honestly, I think we were sold out for like 2 years. It was huge. It's a big car for Porsche.
So Eurowise, and there's some other companies. Dave, I know Eurowise is in North Carolina as well.
Yep.
They're doing really amazing things with essentially going back and updating and modifying the Cayennes into making something truly extraordinary. Maybe we'll have the owner of that shop on our
Mike
podcast.
No is his name. Yeah, Mike, no, I know I could get him on for sure. Yeah, he
did our Scirocco. That's the guy that did the VR6 installation in our Scirocco and all the rest of it. So, David, what about you between those two Porsches?
This one is so easy. And Paul, you should rush out right this minute and get the Cayenne diesel. I have owned 3, and I actually just purchased another one on Thursday of last week. Now, the one I bought was a 13. It has 144,000 miles. As a dealer, I paid $8,500 for this car.
Jeez.
And it is fantastic. This car is fantastic. I had a 15 that I loved. Unfortunately, I got into a head-on collision with it and wrecked it, but it saved me. Now I've got 2 13s, and you put a Tunezilla or one of the other tunes coming on this thing, and it is a beast. I would put it up against any Porsche Cayenne Turbo in a second. The torque is amazing. The towing capacity is phenomenal, and you've got all the comforts, but the torque and you can buy these cars so cheap right now. I've got a friend who wants to sell one right now. It got the 98,000 miles on it, black car. He's probably wanting $30,000+ for it. That's my winner for sure. I would buy that for sure.
Maybe this is the answer. We had someone asked us a question. By the way, viewers, you can always send us questions over on Instagram or, of course, on YouTube. But we had a question a couple weeks ago about somebody asking for what the perfect first car that would be for their kid, and maybe that's the ultimate answer. Maybe a Cayenne diesel is the ultimate answer. All right, so it sounds to me like Dave has definitely voted for Cayenne. I have voted for Cayenne as well. All right, so I'm going to mix it up, and hopefully this will come off well. I blew past the $30,000 mark as far as what to suggest with a this or that, because I wanted to make it a little bit more interesting. And so here's what I am asking you guys to help me. I'm not actually in the market to choose either one of these at the present moment, but if you were, and the this or the that is pushing your price range a little bit past 30,000, just a smidge, to 700,000 or 800,000, right? So like I said, I'm not going to follow the rules. So here's the question. Would you choose a new or a 2024 Porsche 911 ST? And there's one presently on Bring a Trailer, and that's going to go for 700,000 or 800,000. Or would you choose a 2015 458 Speciale for the same money? And I'm going to give you guys a third choice, and this will really mix things up. I think Casey will appreciate this one. Or would you choose, and these are all in the same price range, 700,000 to 800,000, a 2020 Ford GT. So, and obviously all these cars have their own unique followings, all unique experiences. And I chose these 3 because they aren't natural competitors originally, but they're natural competitors now with essentially where the prices have appreciated on these. So, Dave, since you're in the airport, if you're still there, why don't you go first? Of the 3, what would you choose and why?
Ready to board.
Sorry, I just fixed it. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm getting ready to board here, so we'll see if I can do this at the same time that I'm boarding the plane. But I'm going for the Ford GT. Loved that car the second it came out. I think it's going to be one of those classics that just, they've been up and down in value, but I think the Ford GT for me is the way to go.
So we have the 458 Speciale, we have the Ford GT, or we have the 911 ST. Paul, which would you choose and why?
I choose the ST to own and drive and enjoy. If I'm looking at future value, I would agree with Dave. I think the Ford GT, this is, I think, the period where they're as low as they're going to be. And I think as time will tell, they are sort of slow to get going in terms of value. And I can see in the long run, this will hold the value more than the 3. And because the other one's a Ferrari.
Oh! Well, so along those lines, the Speciale values in the last, this year, have just gone through the flipping roof. And I was, again, preparing for today's podcast, and I cannot believe the Apertas now. There's an Aperta for sale for nearly $2 million. A 458 Speciale Aperta. It was $1.85 million. What? In any event. Casey, what about you between those 3?
I've driven all 3, albeit the ST was about 45 feet. But I guess I'll liken it to a 911R that's maybe just a little bit nicer. That's a hard one. Ford GTs are really cool. It's really amazing that they took this car, like we were talk about homologation cars and those sorts of things, but they made a race car that they won Le Mans, and they made it a street car. And the car even though it's very uncomfortable to be in. The seats fixed, the pedals and steering wheel move. It's an insanely incredible experience. It would be hard for me to swallow paying double what the MSRP of a 911 ST was. So, I mean, I hear what Paul's saying. I think I'd take the Ford for 800 grand and drive it like Paul would drive that 911 ST. That's a really weird thing for me to admit right now, but it's really hard for me to pay 100% over MSRP for a 911 ST to put it in that same realm. I just, I don't know. It's out there, but I think a beater, newer Ford GT on rallies like the ones that Paul goes on would probably be pretty awesome.
So clearly my pro America banter a minute or so ago has had an influence on you guys very quickly, and I appreciate that. It's timely being that this is the week of 4th of July. I would choose the Ford in a heartbeat as well. And it's because the overall experience is going to be so much more unique. The very fact that your seat is positioned and you bring the steering wheel and the pedal box to you, the very fact that the aerodynamics in that car are all, wackadoo crazy. It is a really cool exotic looking car that'll prove the test of time. And just it is strange when you get into this price range. And I know everyone says, well, it's, people aren't choosing this or that in this price range. They're choosing all three. But that's really not true, because if you look over Casey's shoulder, eventually even somebody with a robust car collection will run out of space and run out of time to enjoy the cars. And then they just become a burden. And Casey, isn't that essentially that's what you do? You free the burden from a lot of people that are collectors and you take care of their collections for them. I don't think we've ever really talked about that on the show. Let's talk about that in a second. But let me just throw this out at you guys and just be honest. And I know this is going to be ruffle feathers, a little bit, but for $800,000, just to mix things up even more, I put a house in there, right? I put a house that's in Monterey by the sea, or I'm sorry, Monterey, California. If you guys can click it, sorry.
Maybe Monterey Park, California.
Just click my link, son. It's in the spreadsheet. No, look at it. And it's looking at the ocean. It's a condo looking at the ocean. Okay. You know where these are, Paul. It's right down the way from where the auctions happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just 800,000 for something that has a Monterey address doesn't.
No, dude, it's got an ocean view, bro. It is on the ocean.
Oh, is that what you realtors call peekaboo view? You got to stand on the toilet seat and look out.
Okay, so I'm not a realtor, but if I were, yes, that is what you. This one you have to walk out the front door and kind of contort your shoulders and your neck so you can actually see the water. And you do have the omnipresent smell of, dead fish, but it's charming. Right? Okay. And so then you also have, and the other option I gave you is for 800,000, put it in the S&P 500 and collect $80,000 a year on just appreciation. So would that mix up your decision making if you guys had 800 grand to spend on a car?
I just pulled up the condo. It's 478 square feet. So it's a garage.
It also has a $879 a month HOA fee.
Actually I would take the Monterey.
I would
take if that Monterey condo for 800,000 was just a garage, I would actually take that over the house. Because then I would have a place in Monterey to put my car. I'd sleep. I put a Murphy bed in the garage, and that would be great for me. So yeah, if it was a garage, or I'd probably put the money in the bank, take the interest, and go buy shitty cars every year.
Paul would buy 3 RS Americas. That's what he'd buy.
Yeah, no. I mean, honestly, the S&P 500 is pretty seductive at 10.3% per year appreciation because you made 80 grand on that per year. In any event. All right. So Dave, do you want to unmute, or do you have an opinion on that? If you S&P or the condo, which are you going to go for?
Dave, you're muted.
No, he's fine. He's getting on his plane.
I'm unmuted now, but I'm trying to not be that guy in the airport that's talking loud into his phone and pissing off everybody around him. So I would definitely not take the condo. 400 square feet just doesn't speak to me. I love Monterey, great spot. I think I'd still go with the cars. Park some other money. I'm going with the cars.
Hey guys, let's keep on asking Dave questions so he has to be that guy in the airport.
Yeah. Like uncomfortable questions. Dave, tell us how that procedure went.
Oh yes, I enjoyed it so much.
Dave, so how did the transition go? I mean, it looks like it was successful.
Was the biopsy from the proctologist, was it benign? What was it?
Oh my God. I
They're
have to
asking
share
me
this.
yes or no questions, fortunately.
This is totally inappropriate, but I found this story this morning. I think I sent it to you, Paul. There was a guy that was just caught in Texas, and it's this troll ass looking guy you've ever seen. And he admitted that he kidnapped 79 people, dressed up as an alien, and did an anal probe them. The dude was caught and it basically has admitted that he was dressing up. I'm going to say it again because it's so preposterous. Dressing up as an alien and had kidnapped 79 people over the last few decades and had his. Yes, there you go. All right. So maybe we just peaked for the podcast. I know Casey looks very nervous right now.
I don't know what to say. I mean, you were the guy that lived in Texas, so.
Well, that's very unusual for Texas. That's more common down where Paul lives.
Sure.
Actually,
Sure.
yeah.
Sedona, yes, for our Sedona listeners.
Exactly. All right. So moving on, I wanted to talk a little bit about rallies because this is something I have only been on once or twice, and this is a topic that I know is very near and dear to all of you guys' hearts. And so if we're going to give, yeah, exactly. There you go. Perfect timing, Paul. So if we're going to be, this is rally season. A lot of people are looking to go beyond just essentially wash and shines and cars and coffees and whatnot. And so they're ready to go out and start using their cars. But there is rally etiquette. And just from my personal experience, most people have no freaking clue what it is, which turns me off to go to rallies because there's always some jackass that's good thinking it's some sort of race or following you too close or just being generally unsafe. So let's talk about etiquette. Let's talk about, those types of things so people can really get the most out of them. Paul, this is kind of your foray because this is your favorite topic.
It is. It is. I've been on lots of different rallies. And I think people like to just show up and go, "Hey, I'll follow you." And they end up following too close, driving beyond their skill level. And I would say the biggest thing, and you highlighted a couple of them, Tim, with following too closely. But I would say the biggest thing is, the day before, we all have Google Maps, we all have phones. Like, spend a little time, look at the route book and look at where you're going. Like, get an idea of it. And the nice thing is a lot of these rallies now have Google Maps. Practice at home learning how to use them because it's really helpful. You'll notice things like, oh, we're going to be making a turn in a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles. Maybe it's not worth making a pass right now or doing something a little riskier that could be avoided. So I would say, to me, that's one of them. And the other one is, more and more groups are mandating that we have good radios and that we communicate, because that is such a key thing to be able to know, not just, hey, there's a cop at the next corner, but there's a deer in the road, there's animals in the road, there's a disabled car, someone broke down, someone's injured, whatever. So I would say, just being a little more wherewithal with what's going on in the rally and not just following along like you're on a racetrack.
Were rallies really big in Germany? Is that a big European thing?
It not like it is here, in the sense I think it's very, like, you have the Mille Miglia, the revival, which is still a time distance rally. I would say more time distance competitive rallies are a thing. Or they're, rally to me is the wrong word. When someone asks me, I call them tours. They're vintage tours. There's no time thing. I would say there's less of that I saw in Germany. There might be like some fancy tours put on for an event, which ironically, I would say a lot of those tours are occupied by a lot of Americans who bring cars over for those. So there are neat tours there, but I think they're kind of like the Colorado Grand, the California Mille. They're more of these hoity-toity expensive things. But the rallies I do, which are more the blue collar fun rallies, which are a lot less expensive and a variety of cars, I would say there's less of that in Europe that I saw, or at least in Germany.
Yeah, the Mille Miglia guys, they have rallies all over the United States now. I was really surprised. I ran into them when we were in Car Week last year. Super cool guys. If you guys ever have a chance to, meet the the gentleman that bought it. One's very Italian and one's very American. But the rallies, so the only one that is still true to the original is the one in Italy. And that's the one where you have to have a car. I bet you Casey knows. The car has to be 1950 something or older. I think it's I don't remember. It can't be
I thought it was 57. It might be like, I think it's 57 and older.
Yeah. And I've had a lot of friends that have done those. Well, less than 10 that have done that rally. And all of them say it was a good experience, but they wouldn't do it again. So I'm not really sure what they say. Is basically, it's really scary. People are not safe. They get way too close to the road, even though it's not the actual racetrack like it was. And they're exhausted at the end of the day. But that's unlike what you're describing, which is mostly friends getting together and having some sort of formalized experience.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't appeal to me at all either. For the cost to do it, I think there's some vintage tours that are more interesting to do. Like one of my friends and clients, he did a Israel rally kind of
Wow.
tour, and it was like the cars that were there were wild. It was literally just like the stuff we do. It was expensive just for the logistics of it, but it wasn't. We're staying in 4-star hotels, and it was just kind of a really neat cultural driving experience, which I find more appealing than going to, Monte Carlo, where you are literally driving 11 hours a day. You're exhausted. It is dangerous. And you're in the time you are not driving, you're trying to keep your car from not, you want to make it because it was such an expensive experience.
Some of those are really expensive too. Like the ones they do around Car Week, there's some that are just like thousands and thousands of dollars. And there's some private ones that Porsche and Ferrari does that are just, it's like 30 grand, you
Yeah.
know, and it's because they do mix in really high end experiences along with just doing the driving and whatnot. Yeah. So maybe it's worth it to some people. If you're going to take your spouse, there better be some nice hotels and spas to offset the long drive days. I think that's probably where it's at. So
Yeah.
Casey, you have any suggestion on rallies or whatnot? Is this of interest to you?
It's certainly of interest. I had aspirations to go on the Driving While Awesome rally in October. Unfortunately, it's the same date as Lufgekalt in Durham, North Carolina, so I won't be attending that. But I mean, I'd love to do one. I'd honestly love to ship my 964 out to California and do the Driving While Awesome Classic rally in the spring. Financially, that might be a little bit prohibitive, but I really, I'd love to figure it out and be on one of those. I just don't have a lot of personal experience. I know that the local PCA group here does time distance rallies, and it's always been something that I thought about participating in, but I've never taken the time to do it. But it's certainly on my on the docket to do for sure.
Dave, you're still hanging on as you're grabbing your seat on the plane. If you can hear us, if you can communicate, if you want to contribute, go for it. Oh, he's in his seat finally.
I'm in the
Dave,
seat live from seat 9B.
nine.
D, actually 9D, not in first class, unfortunately. But hey,
Why,
we
of
gotta
course?
make it work.
No, I mean, why, of course? Don't say, of course. I mean, yeah.
Okay,
Go-
so let me see if I can do this with most medium voice I can possibly, not be that guy. But I am a big rally guy like Paul. Paul and I have actually, we didn't know each other at the time, but we've both done Texas Hill Country together. I actually think I have a few pictures in Paul's car for Texas Hill Country. I think rallies are fantastic. One of the things that I really do think is from the standpoint of etiquette is really stuff like, rally right, fuel at night. Don't wait until the morning when everybody's ready to go and hold up the whole crew while you're having to run to the gas station and fill up. Definitely, like Paul said, you want to have the radios and you want to have your group. And, these rallies they're not designed to be timed events or anything. They're designed to be ripping around quickly on back roads and, with a group of friends. So you try to have 5 or 6 cars together, all driving in kind of similar pace. And when you get somebody that's not in the same sync with you, it can screw it all up. So you want to have the right order for these things too. If you've got a quick driver up front, you want that guy to lead, and your slowest driver you want to have at the back. And that accordion will kind of keep expanding and contracting as you're ripping up around the road. So rallies are just the best. They are the best way to hang out with a bunch of people, especially Porsche people. And there's a lots of different etiquette. I do tend to like the rallies that are a bit more organized, where the groups are kind of preset, or that you can kind of configure, as well as the routes being determined, and what route you're going to run on in a given day being kind of dictated to you, versus Texas Hill Country is kind of wild and you just run what you want. But I do like some of the ones where you're picking this route today and this route tomorrow. It's just that rallies are just fantastic. The best experiences I have driving cars, for sure.
Well, you guys are talking me into giving rallies another try, and I know Paul's not going to want to participate in organizing it, but maybe we should find somebody, Casey, I'm thinking about you, to organize a Full Throttle Talk rally. And we could do it. Where would we do it? So if we're going to do a Full Throttle Talk rally, where would it be?
I mean, selfishly for me, north of San Francisco. To me, north of San Francisco to the Oregon border is just sublime. It's
I
so
totally
good.
agree. Yep, it
And
is so beautiful.
it is. And I still haven't done a lot on the Mid-Atlantic, and I know West Virginia's got an insane rally that I've wanted to do. Texas, I love. I think I love the people more than the driving. But yeah, I would say that that's somewhere. I've tentatively scheduled a rally that I'm going to be participating in northern Arizona, New Mexico, the mountain part of Arizona and New Mexico, and that is really good too. But Northern California for me, like way north.
But Paul, have you ever driven around, Appalachia, Smoky Mountains? You've never, no?
Maybe almost 30 years ago before I was into this crap. So
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's pretty mesmerizing. But yes. Okay. So we have one vote for that part. What do you guys think? If we were to do a Full Throttle Talk rally, where would it be? I know
Well,
what Dave's going to say. I'm going to say
I
what
think
Dave's
we
going to
can.
say.
I think we can start at Sonderworks and we can just all drive Cayenne diesels.
Yeah. There you go.
Absolutely, yes.
logging
And
roads.
without a doubt, North Carolina. And Paul, you can just fly, and I'll loan you a car. You don't have to ship your car. I've got plenty of 911s. Come on, and the next rally we do in North Carolina, like in the fall. No, fall's not going to work for you, so we'll figure it out. But that's definitely where to go.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. All right. So one last question before Dave's plane takes off. Project car updates. Do you guys have any project cars that you're working on? Maybe things that, if you were being honest, you're not really working on anymore, but they're still taking up some space in your brain. Any things in the dusty corners, the recesses of your mind? Project cars. I'll go with Dave last, as he's going to have the most interesting ones, I think. How about you, Paul? Any interesting project cars?
I mean, it seems like all of my cars always need something all of the time. As soon as I come back from a rally or an event, believe it or not, my green 911 right there, it's fairly well sorted. I have a couple little silly electrical things going on, but most of the time I'm just trying to cycle through 11 cars and get them oil changed and brake flushed. Our 67 Beetle needs some front end love. It's got some interesting new rattles that, of course, happened when my wife was driving it while I was gone. So I've got to figure out what that is. It's due for an oil change too. So
Hold on.
67 Beetle.
Did you just say your wife did damage to your Beetle? I think that's what I just
No,
picked.
no, I don't think she did damage to it. I think because it sits and not driven enough, when I
Ah,
do pull it out to drive, it's like, well, I don't remember that sound. We had converted the front end to disc brakes, and it almost sounds like brake pad chatter, which I hope is what it is and not like front suspension problems. It seems to drive fine. It just makes this rattle under slow speed before you hit the brake. And when you hit the brake, the rattle goes away. So I'm going with something going on with the brake pads on the disc brakes we put in.
Casey, any project cars for you, or any that you're helping any of your clients with?
I've got a bit of a down date. Unfortunately, my 964 is developed. I don't know, it's above, let's say 2,800 RPMs when they start to kind of go on cam. It's not smooth. I'm not sure what the issue is. It almost feels like maybe it's one running on only one of the two distributors, or one of the coils has failed. It just isn't smooth. Like the timing's wrong. So my buddy Yuri is going to start doing some diligence on it this weekend. We converted the car to 993 style coils, which is a pretty normal upgrade for 964s, but perhaps something in that isn't right, and might have to go back to 964 parts, which is a lot more expensive.
So Casey, this 964, at some point, have you ever taken into consideration the thing might be haunted or possessed?
It's honestly, like it had two real big issues. The clutch, which I've discussed before, which has been corrected, which is fantastic. The steering, it needs a different rack. But it's old car stuff. You know, if I didn't have a project like this to work on, I mean, what else would I do? I'd just do like 3 or 4 other podcasts a week.
Yeah.
So in other words, you haven't yet accepted the fact that it might be slightly demonic. I'm hearing what you're saying. All right, Dave, moving on to you. What special projects do you have that you're working on?
Okay, I've got to really.
Uh-oh. He's still talking. It's the best story of the podcast.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave, I think your tenure with us today, it may have come to an official end.
He's done.
At least he looks happy.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he?
he left doing what he loves.
Sitting in seat 9B in premium economy on American Airlines to Buffalo, New York.
Can't hear me.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Shoot. Okay, I'm not sure what happened.
All right. Tell us your project update. I'm sure you got something good.
Oh, you can hear me now. Okay, very
I
good.
can hear you.
Okay. I am trying to finish configuring this GT2 RS, and I've got 5 more days to lock it in. So I think I'm kind of locked in. I've got a couple of items that I'm pondering, so certainly interested in opinion. I know your guys' opinion on the exposed carbon fiber, but I'm going to leave it exposed purely from a resale perspective. As I've talked to enough people, tells me I need to leave it exposed. That's the reason for the exposed. The other thing I'm debating, rear tail light, the rear tail light, is whether or not do I go with the design that doesn't have the red, and leave it clear, or do I go with the red rear tail light? And the last thing is brake caliper color, and then I'll let you guys comment because it's getting noisy in the plane here. So.
We have to keep him talking. We have to ask him questions.
No.
Yeah, I want to see a few elbows hit him in the head as he's walking.
There you go.
You can stick that into
Boom.
All right,
Thank
Dave, mute yourself.
I'm mute. I'm going to mute.
Okay. All right. I'll give you my opinion first. Go with black calipers. They look best. I think you're getting, just shake your head. Weren't you choosing GT silver? Wasn't that your color? Yeah. And I'm going to suggest also with regards to the GT silver, that the brighter red or the non-smoke taillights might look better, but that's just strictly personal opinion because the contrast looks really good. I would avoid the colored calipers because that seems a little bit 10 years ago to me. And frankly, I just never have liked it. And I'll suggest this as well. And this is coming from, I'm being a bit of a hypocrite saying this. If you want to have this car as a long-term car, spec it the way you want it. Every damn car nowadays, and you're getting this damn thing for cost. You're not paying a 30 to 50 grand over. So if you want the painted hood and all the rest of it, then get it painted and screw the next guy. That's my opinion, what I would go with. So Paul, you're next.
I'm pretty close to you. I would say definitely the red taillight. It just, in the end, it's classic. It'll always look good. Clear looks horrible. Smoke. You could do some of that stuff aftermarket. I would do not quite black. I would do either silver or gray calipers. I just think it looks classy. And the painted hood, I mean, I think that is such a narrow thing of people wanting carbon fiber exposed. And I think that the painted hood in the long run will be more desirable. It'll reach a larger audience. And also maybe in 10 years from now, all these cars are all carbon fiber anyway. So it might be cliche. Oh yeah, of course your hood's exposed.
Isn't that kind of how it is now though? I mean, carbon fiber.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it is.
I read
and Dave, are you asking owners of these cars? Or are you asking people who are actually selling these cars today?
I'm asking dealers who are buying, selling, and speccing the cars, and I am asking, just the general population. I think with the GT silver car, I really do need to go with the exposed carbon. I'm flip-flopping on the rear tail light, whether it's clear red. I lean to red originally, but it's very subtle now. That tail light's pretty subtle as it is, so I think either color could probably work. The only option I can get on the calipers is black. It's either got to be red or black. So I'm going to go with the black, and that's kind of the direction I'm headed.
We have to ask him more questions. That is too fun watching him sweat. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit of a sadist today. So Casey, do you have any opinions on this? I don't know what you were suggesting.
I'm going to throw a wrench in everything. Yes, I agree with Paul, and I talked with Dave. It's your car. Do what you want. I would spec ceramic brakes personally. You said red brakes, which makes me think that you're going the steel brake route. The dealership will want you to check the black brake box because black ceramic brakes are considered a $10,000 exclusive option, which goes towards their exclusive option count, which is really important for dealerships. But I honestly think that GT3 RSs now that I drive cars with ceramic brakes all the time, ceramic brakes are insane. That to me would be the first box that I'd check. I hate clear taillights. It reminds me of a Toyota Altezza. No thanks. It's like some sort of JC Whitney catalog thing. They look gross. So I would do red taillights. I would paint everything, and I would do ceramic brakes, and I don't care what color you pick because you're going to be inside of the car so often that you're not going to be staring at the outside of the car all the time. And it's going to be your car, man. I know that you're thinking about the possibility of selling it or something in a year, but nobody's going to care whether or not the hood or the roof are painted. They're going to be super stoked to get a really awesome car. And I know that you're a great steward of cars and really know how 911s work. Just make it how you want it because it's really, really expensive to buy the same car twice if you buy it the first time the wrong way.
Well, not to mention what the hell the price on the next generation of those damn things are going to be.
It's going to be $4 million. Who knows?
Exactly.
And I changed my answer. I assumed all GT3 RSs came with ceramic brakes.
Me too.
The fact that they don't, Casey's absolutely right. Once you've had ceramic brakes, you will never go back.
Yeah, get poverty spec, but get ceramic brakes, 100%.
Absolutely.
Would you guys go with the sport seats?
I would go with 18-way adaptive Barca loungers.
What about you, Casey?
And Dave mic drops and he leaves the room after that.
I would tell you that if he does not get sport bucket seats, that will affect negatively resale value. But I could go for not sitting in sport bucket seats because literally everything I sit in has sport bucket seats. They're great to get in and sit in. But for long distances, if Dave is going to actually drive these on rallies, the 18-way seats are significantly more comfortable. And I think that's another thing that you will find somebody looking for 18-way seats in the future. And maybe that negates what I'm saying, but you have to do front axle lift, you have to do ceramic brakes, and you have to do sport bucket seats on an RS car, or people find reasons to not buy it. And I think I don't know if it's a RS or a GT3, but you have to do a bigger fuel tank if that's an option.
Yep.
Have bigger fuel tank. That's spec.
Yeah.
I am going with these sport buckets, but because I've got an upholstery shop, I think I can adjust them, get the bolsters the way I want them, so the car will be more comfortable. I agree that the sport bucket's pretty important. I had not opted for ceramic brakes, but I would probably rethink that. And my main reason was I really didn't have any intention of tracking the car, but at the same time, I understand what you guys are saying. I'll probably check that box, go with the black version of that, the black version with ceramic brakes.
I wouldn't buy the car without ceramic brakes personally. Would you guys? I mean, that'd be, yeah.
No. And people think it's a track thing. I used to think the same thing until I started experiencing it on mine, and it just gets the front end lighter. It's amazing how it changes the dynamics of it. Even when I get into a similar car that doesn't have it, I'm like, oh, this feels thick and heavy.
Look at Dave. He's getting yelled at. I think they're throwing him off the plane.
These folks next to me are getting upgraded to first class.
Oh,
bummer.
They're getting upgraded to first class because the nerd next to him won't stop talking about Porsches.
And by the way, Tim, besides 993s and Corvettes, if you want to add sport buckets to my hate list, that is a topic of Emperor has no clothes. No one likes them. No one wants to be in them. They convince themselves that they're better, and it's just sort of everyone lemmings along that sport buckets are the way to go. And most of the people are buying because they think it's a future value thing, which maybe in a 10 years from now, we're going to be like, what were we thinking? These are torture devices. No one ever tracks these cars. And by the way, if you're going to track the car, really track the car, an OMP, a Recaro, like a real race seat is actually better anyway.
Hell yeah, and safer. But
Safer.
so you, to Dave's point though, you can, and I've done this before. You can put memory foam, reupholster the seats, put memory foam, and it's really nice. Or you can get Matt Farah made fun of me when he saw me show up to pick up our GT or our 718 Spider RS because he had it in storage for us last year during Car Week. And out of my suitcase, I pull a couple grandma pillows. I mean, he just thought that was the funniest thing he'd ever seen before, you know. But the truth is that does make a huge difference on your butt when you're traveling long distance in those seats. So before Dave gets booted off, maybe this is a good place for us to round the bend. I can't believe he stayed on for the full show today. So guys, let's just go ahead and wrap. And what do we want the topics and the focus to be next week? If we can do some homework and find out what the next GT3, and Casey, I imagine you're still going to have better inroads than either of us or any of us about the new GT2 RS. That would be really fascinating to find out what we can find out about that car. I'm hearing a lot of speculation about it, and some of my former VIP 918 VIP owners, friends that are suggesting that those cars are going to start at $500,000. I don't know if that's true or not. Things like that. That would be kind of fun to talk about. Any other topics you guys want to put on the agenda for next week?
We've talked about it, and this is sort of timeless. I think favorite homologation cars is a cool subject.
Yep.
We've always dreamed about owning our poster. These are all poster cars for all of us. So, I mean, you know, not just drive, but imagine living with our poster car. And I think that would be cool.
That's a great topic. Casey?
We had a conversation, I think, in our group chat the other day about wings, spoilers, those sorts of things, how they make or ruin cars. I think that should be a discussion as well, as far as our personal preferences are concerned. I know
100%.
I know where I lie, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
We could throw sport buckets in there too. We'll make it a combo.
You know what, though, Casey? The question would be, has your opinion of wings and whatnot changed as you've gotten older?
I mean, well, I guess we can add that too, for sure. But
Yeah.
we can put in the world's most uncomfortable seats. The answer is my choice for homologation car, which is a 935 lollipop seat. I don't know if you guys have ever sat in one of those, but they are horrible. They are the worst.
Yep.
And so we'll be hearing from Dave because he's going to be talking about his experience in the alligator alley because he got thrown off the plane.
You
Go
mean
ahead.
the alligator Alcatraz? You mean?
Yeah,
right?
alligator Alcatraz. Yeah, thank you.
And I'm gonna vote for travel tips while doing the podcast. That's my subject here. So 'cause I think
Actually,
next Wednesday I'm on the way back as well, so we'll have to figure this out.
You might be the one that's giving us the tips because you've done an excellent job. So I really appreciate it.
Oh, please get kicked off the plane for the end of the podcast. That would just be a great mic drop moment.
So now before we go, I think Dave should sing us out. He should sing the national anthem.
Oh, say can
Oh, Lord. How about the Lee Greenwood version? I'm proud. Sing it loud. Let's all go together. Let's see if we can get him thrown off. Oh,
I want to see
no.
everyone in the audience.
Hold on. What would get him
Here we
thrown
are,
off the
here we
plane
are.
forever?
Oh,
We have to do something
God,
really totally inappropriate.
things we don't want to say.
Yeah.
Or-
Yeah. Explosive devices strapped to.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you guys a funny story. I'll end this. So when Zoe, no, okay, this actually happened when Zoe was, our daughter was probably 3 or 4, and we were getting served the food and the whole thing, and I bribed her to say as loud as she could, "I've had better food on the plane to prison," and she said it. And everyone laughed their butts off. Anyway, so that's what we'll end today's show. So guys, listen, like, subscribe on YouTube, and do send us your questions or suggestions on what you'd like us to focus on. We're balancing out between Porsche content, but obviously we're all Porsche fans. But anything else you'd like us to focus on, first cars, suggested trips, European sojourns, as Paul has become a resident expert on that, anything at all, let us know. Just follow us on Instagram, but also you can put your comments or your suggestions on YouTube or Instagram, however you want to message us is great. In the meantime, you guys have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you on the show next week. Thanks, guys. Be safe. God bless.
Yep. Bye.
See ya. Safe travels, Dave.